Do you remember just how bleak things looked this time 2 years ago in the lead up to patch 9.1? Craziness, right? It looked so bad. But here we are, and the news of today is that patch 10.1 comes out on the 2nd of May, with the next season coming out on the 9th of May, 7 days later. This is earlier than anyone thought, right? I'm pretty sure that late May was just about the earliest people thought they could get away with, but no. And what this actually means for the game is kind of crazy. Here's some stats for you. When this comes out, it will have been 6 weeks since World of Warcraft's previous patch, which of course was 10.0.7, all right, taking us to the Forbidden Reach. 2 months before that, we got 10.0.5 on the 24th of January. And overall, that means we have got 3 patches in 6 months, right? 2 months, a patch, 2 months, a patch, a month and a half, a big patch. That is still holding to a 6-month-long season, which does seem to be what we sort of all settled on as being in and around ideal. I mean, do you remember Legion's 77 days there would be a patch? We are back on that timescale, essentially. But the difference is, this time around, there seems to actually be more content. Which overall is, yeah, kind of crazy. But of course, there's a question that's almost certainly in your head, and that is, why am I wearing a new hoodie? And that's obviously because we just got all of our team hoodies for the Pale Beyond. By the way, just worth saying, now that we've got enough reviews, the recent reviews for our game, The Pale Beyond, are at 95% on Steam. So, if you would like to pick up The Pale Beyond, our narrative survival role-playing game, then you can check out down below, with that Steam link. So, thanks to everybody for your support. And with that said, let's talk about what actually is the thing that was probably in your head, which is this too early? Is the game screwed? I'm concerned. Okay, so I'll level with you on the PTR stuff. Here's the deal. Quite a few tier sets are in flux in terms of design right, which in a way is reasonable, but it certainly does mean that they will have to be quick with how they do all of this, right? That's definitely the case. That being said, what we have seen in the public test realm is these tier sets being designed, redesigned, tweaked on a week-by-week basis. They have actually been quite proactive to people's feedback. Obviously, though, the question is going to be, is this going to be enough time? The other side of things, of course, is the Mythic Plus affixes. We did a video on that. It was a fiery video. Look at this thumbnail, literally fire. Yeah, I didn't get hurt. It's not real fire, sorry for lying to you. But those issues with the affixes, to many people in the player base, actually are quite major issues. Even though, yeah, these affixes actually will be quite easy to deal with. They're just not the direction that people wanted, even though the counterplay to them all is actually really not going to be a problem for most groups. I think there is just some, people being a bit frustrated in principle. And then basically the question is, affixes aside, will raid and dungeon testing be okay, right? Will the next, say, 4 weeks, literally 4 weeks, is that going to be enough, assuming the final week's PTR build is also going to be the release candidate? That said, I kind of do imagine maybe we will get a little bit of NA beta, because that does seem to happen, much to the chagrin of those of you in America who get the patches first, and much to the whatever it is for us in Europe, who generally get a slightly better working patch, albeit a bit later. Big picture though, usually those kinks are ironed out in not that much time. And looking at this patch, nearly everything else actually does seem to be pretty good, right? The rest of it is all there, happy enough. So essentially, assuming they get those two things broadly right, we're just in for an utter shedload of content compared to what we would have usually got. Now, here's the thing, some people have also been saying, hey, I haven't had time to finish my 10.0.7 goals. Now that's a fun little thing, because you can come back. But to a lot of people, it's the framing, right? Where they're like, oh, as soon as there's another patch, this is now old content. even if it is only 6 weeks old. So I do have to wonder what that will be like mentally. Now, undoubtedly, there are certainly things like where rare elites will be a bit harder to get groups for. There may be fewer people who are spawning the profession rares. things like that. But that said, when I actually think about the overall sort of structure of patch 10.0.7, I don't think that's the largest concern. Here's the deal, right? You've got the campaign. It's not particularly long. It's actually really good and a big step up over what we've been used to. And that campaign is a direct prelude to the content of patch 10.1. Okay? So that's the main thing that you have to do to feel like you are kept up. And while you go around the Forbidden Reach, what do you get? You get bind on account 385 gear tokens, and you get upgrade tokens. So stuff that means that you can quickly gear up your alts. In the Zarlek caverns, where you're doing, the whole sort of puzzle mini game to build your Onyx Amulet and like get all the gems for it. Well, here's the deal. That is actually going to be relevant content in the next patch for the majority of players, just not those who are going to be pushing things a bit harder, right? So that actually means that the Forbidden Reach does act like a form of catch-up to get everybody ready before the patch, to help get new characters up to speed during the patch, and where people can still have the likes of the Onyx Amulet actually being a relevant thing for them during the patch. And if that is the case, then people will be doing the rares to get keys for the amulet. And then we look at the other content of 10.07, you've got the additional stuff that you can do where you like select one of the factions. Right, you select one of the Dragonflight factions, you get a few more quests for them, and a 10% bonus to reputation in that day. Well, that's evergreen, right? That's just kind of accelerated catch-up for those reputations. So that's not even an issue. And when you think about the other major features they added, those are UI things, which are evergreen. Just quite a few fixes, tweaks, stuff like that. The Retribution Paladin rework, which again, that's an evergreen thing. And it probably helps that they, have got some of their post-launch balancing done now instead of having to do it at the start of a new season. So that's probably a good thing. And then the Heritage Armor quest lines. Those are evergreen. And then when we think about the trading post, that's been giving people something to talk about, some extra things to do, and a bunch of transmogs and all that stuff. And it's been doing so since February, and it's just going to keep on doing that. So when you kind of see how they're actually just layering and layering and layering and building things up in the game more and more and more and more, I think you do see this patch cycle can actually win. So clearly 10.07, they always made that as if it was a prelude patch. Now, when we get to some other dates, a fairly obvious thing crops up, and that is Diablo. All right? Diablo 4 honestly slaps super hard, and I can't believe I'm saying that because I have a bias against that genre. But I really enjoyed it. Matt really enjoyed it. It comes out on the 6th of June, but they are doing the thing where the people who buy it early get to actually start playing it on the 2nd of June. Because, it's the modern industry, it is what it is. But they've successfully built up hype. They've had the most successful Diablo beta ever. They've had pretty insane numbers. They have had, essentially from the press and from general audiences, absolutely outstanding reviews. It does look like it's going to be a big win for them. So that always meant like patch 10.1, it's either going to be before Diablo or after Diablo. I think we said it was 50-50. I just in no way thought that it would be this much before Diablo. As for the other downsides, I think the only other group that have been a little bit put off by this is some of the Race to World First guilds, because they end up doing these live events with, all the glitz and the glam and the sponsors and the casters. So they found out about this with a month in advance. It seems they were actually caught off guard by it, which is just one of those things. It's like, Blizz, if you sort of want to benefit from there being a Race to World First, then you should probably work something out there. But then they obviously don't want their patch dates to leak. And then you don't really want a situation where some players are getting special treatment because they do that. When it comes to access to information for a new patch, right? So it's kind of a hard one to work out there, but I mean, at the end of the day, if the Race to World First is just a player-driven thing, it's not like Blizzard absolutely need to be super accommodating. It's just that, if they know what's going to happen, they may as well try not to be rude about it. But I think for the vast majority of players, that's just not a concern that exists. so it's not really a problem. And overall, that leaves us in a situation where I think if somebody purchased a 6-month recurring subscription at the start of this expansion, I really think they can feel actually pretty damn good about that purchase, because they've got more content than we've pretty much ever got within a 6-month span, right? I mean, that's kind of mental, but that does appear to sort of be what it is, right? That's crazy. Now, there's a few other things that we can infer from this. So, if patch 10.1 coming out early May is the case, then it actually opens us up for something that I previously thought could have been impossible. And that is patch 10.3. Now, I'm not sure about this, but think about it this way. If WoW's next expansion is to come out in the 4th quarter of 2024, of course, it's going to be announced at BlizzCon, which will likely be in the 4th quarter of this year, okay? If that's going to be the case, then if patch 10.1 came out like mid to late June, and then patch 10.2 came out like, I don't know, early December, and then from like December to June, maybe June would be the kind of like, the greatest hit season, like with season 4 of Shadowlands. Like, I was looking at that and just thinking, I don't know if this is going to be possible. But now it actually could be, because if patch 10.2 comes out in November, and then you have like maybe early May, late April, I'm not exactly sure, for like, a 10.3, then I suppose you could have a situation where you could have 10.3 and then a pretty quick greatest hits season before the next expansion comes out. It's hard to say, but I just do say that because there's been one thing that's honestly been puzzling me quite a bit, and that is if patch 10.2 is going to be Emerald Dream themed, as some of the data mining is indicated, then I wasn't exactly sure how we'd even resolve like the Bronze Dragonflight stories in the game. I kind of always assumed that the Bronze would have a major patch and be a pretty big influence. And perhaps it is the case that, maybe it is the case that this now buys them enough time for that. Of course, the alternative thing would be them actually just not releasing WoW's next expansion in 2024 and maybe bumping it into 2025 and just having Dragonflight being a longer than usual expansion that is significantly more stuffed with content. Hard to say exactly, but overall here, I think that this is pretty incredible. We've never had as much content like this. I think that for the players who just, they're there to do the world content, this is really important because it would be so easy for them to just be done with the game in no time. I mean, like, how long can you do Primal Storms for? Even with the modified Primal Storm thing that they did in the Primalist Future with 10.05. Like, how long can that really last for? Well, now there's a Forbidden Reach. In the next, in the next patch, there's going to be Zaralek Cavern. And then after that, we're going to have what? Another, 0.5 and 0.7 patch. Who knows what they will bring? I'm thinking Archaeology revamp. I'm thinking a Mage Tower-like feature, to be honest, if I was guessing. It's also, by the way, an insane time for video games. We've got Jedi Survivor coming out in April. We've got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom May 12th. It's all craziness. It's also coming 3 weeks ahead of FF14's next patch, which overall just means like being a gamer is really hard right now because there is just so much video game to play. Now you may be wondering, how is this possible? I actually think there is a way that it is possible. And this is Blizzard returning to something that they did and then stopped doing. So, seasons. Patches being limited to one a season has damaged WoW quite a bit, in my opinion. Now, yes, we have had, 9.1.5, but that patch had feck all in it of actual content, really. Back in Legion, they had this philosophy where they didn't want, say, a raid release cadence or something like that to hold them back from releasing world content. And we actually had a funny enough situation in patch 8.2, where it came out with 2 full zones, right? Mechagon and Azhatar. In this situation, 10.07 has 1 zone, though it is, reused and updated stuff from the Drakthir starting zone. It had a whole bunch of quest lines that probably could have fit in a 10.1 in a usual slow schedule. And then 10.1 is just like, what? Large main zone. I suppose it's more of a patch 9.2 size thing. But I think the basic point here is Blizzard are able to pull content forward a bit, design it to be mid-season content that for many players will still extend into the start of the next season, and then have a far more smoothed out content cadence. So it's the idea that if you're a world content player, you don't have to wait for Season 1 to be over for you to get a new thing to do. And perhaps that gear will let you experience a bit more of Season 1. So overall, I think it is a significantly more healthy content cadence for the game. And as for the other side of how this is possible, well, the WoW team's over 700 people now. It's actually grown substantially. They literally have hundreds more staff since the start of, or at least since the credits of 9.0. They have hundreds more staff since that point. Like, they've grown over 50%. It's kind of crazy. Ian said to me in the interview that they're basically, now, take all things with a grain of salt, but basically they're doing the same thing. They just have so many more people that they're able to work in parallel a hell of a lot more. And I mean, ultimately, that is what a big live game needs. So who knows? I know that in the past, Blizzard had shied away. They were afraid of over-investing in World of Warcraft. I think as evidenced by them very quickly moving on to Project Titan, with it sort of being intended to be the successor game to WoW. World of Warcraft could have had a lot of upgrades a hell of a lot sooner. From what I understand, it could have had more capital thrown at it quite a bit sooner. But I think what happened is that they realized WoW actually is a main product of Blizzard. And it always was, obviously. It was always the cash cow. But I think they've realized this is not the cash cow that they can minimally invest in, because we're in a world where there are so many other massive live service games. They're not competing with other MMOs as much. They're also competing with Netflix. They're competing with Amazon Prime. They're competing with Warframe, Path of Exile, Destiny, and all a myriad of live games that people are playing right now. And I think they've realized that, okay, if we're going to keep the cash cow alive, we need to invest in it like it's one of the most important things that we can possibly do. So I don't know, maybe Bobby's just opened up the checkbook and John Haidt has went absolutely crazy with it. So obviously it's a shame that the whole, enforced, return to office mandate and stuff like that maybe will cause brain drain from the company. And look, you can have whatever your opinion is on that, but ultimately the amount of content that we've got now shows that working from home has worked for the World of Warcraft development team. So if changing from that new status quo from that to what they want the new thing to be, which is the enforced, working in the office, if changing that means that they experience brain drain, that is bad for the game. So absolutely, this is a case where things are really good right now, but we can't burn out. This can't be a situation where WoW is kept alive via massive churn, so Blizzard absolutely needs to treat its people right. But overall, I think that this is a humongous win for the game. The fact that they're able to do this is a pretty damn good win. They will need to be very careful and, to be honest with you, probably just work their fucking asses off in order to get this patch out on time and also meet player feedback on some of the affixes, some of the dungeons, getting all the raid testing done, getting the class balancing done. That's certainly going to be tricky. I wish them luck with that, of course. But yeah, overall, this is just a humongous win. Yeah, it's not been like this in a long, long time. One of the last times where World of Warcraft experienced a dip at the start of an expansion, but then was able to very slowly grow through an expansion. It may be one of the only times in recent memory that it's happened, and it was Mists of Pandaria. Mists had a pretty well-paced content cadence, a bit more similar to what we're experiencing, now or in Legion. It had really, really, really good content for the time. They were innovating. They were trying to shake the game up. It really felt like WoW was alive and it was growing. It actually had some pretty good marketing as well. I'm thinking about the patch 5.4 trailer. And with that, we actually saw subs go up during an expansion. And ultimately, WoW's largest problem has been this massive spike, massive fall thing. Because we've seen that through Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, people got worn down, and now to Dragonflight, people lost faith. They'd been churned too much. They've been churned so much that they're no longer willing to give the game a chance, which is why Dragonflight, you could perhaps say, rightly given the past, undersold. And also versus Shadowlands, there was no, COVID thingy going on. Or, like enforced work from home and, lockdowns and all of that. Who knows? Maybe it is the case that the pandemic served to inflate Shadowlands' numbers, and maybe that actually masked the problem from Blizzard. Because maybe they thought, oh, look at these numbers, it's fastest selling PC game of all time. Great, we don't have to worry. Maybe that's what happened, who knows? Maybe one of the reasons why, maybe pre-order data was so good that they felt like, no, we are actually onto this. People must be resonating with Covenants. Look how many pre-orders we've got. Of course, there's a lockdown. People are playing video games because there's shag all else they can do. So it's one of those things. I think that this is now a time where the game deserves to have those numbers in the fashion of MoP go back up again. This is exciting. I don't think there's anything else that I really have to say about this issue other than, obviously, if you want to support what we're doing and check out the Pale Beyond, the game that we went and developed that has came out, is now 95% recent views. And the reason why 95%, I think it's of like about 250 reviews, but the reason why that matters is that 95% is the threshold for Steam to call your game overwhelmingly positive. So at least at the time recording, who knows, it may have went down to 94, but at least as I sit and record this, we're at 95 overwhelmingly positive, which is just insane. And we have got more big news for the game, hopefully next week. And yeah, stuff's just going really good. So thank you, everybody. That's the crack with World of Warcraft, and I suppose my general thoughts about the health of the game, the state of its development. Let me know what your thoughts are. Perhaps if them actually now showing up with the goods, is that making you reconsider trying the game again? I'd love to hear, so let me know down below. Check out this video next for some awesome content. I'll see you next time.